The unexpected pool party. Imagine waking up on a warm Saturday morning, the kind of day that promises nothing but a relaxing weekend. You step outside, coffee in hand, to enjoy a moment of peace in your own backyard. The sound of birds chirping, the fresh scent of the morning air, and the soft rays of the sun on your face. Everything feels perfect, right? Then you look toward your pool. But wait, there's something wrong. A middle-aged woman, someone you don't recognize, is floating in your pool like she owns the place. It's not just any casual swim, though. She's lying across a bright neon pink inflatable lounger, oversized sunglasses perched perfectly on her face, a half-empty margarita glass dangling from her hand. You freeze for a second. Is this a prank? Did you somehow forget about a pool party you were supposed to host? But no, that's not it. A man from 2 houses down, Todd, is sitting casually on one of your deck chairs, rubbing sunscreen onto his bald head like he's on vacation at a resort. Beside him, Agnes, the infamous neighborhood gossip queen, is sipping a coconut drink with a tiny umbrella in it. All of them are there, uninvited, making themselves at home in your backyard. And not just that, they're using your pool as if it's their private spa. The audacity. Now, at this point, your mind is racing. The HOA president, Helen, who had always rubbed you the wrong way, is lounging in your pool with a smug smile, as if this is some sort of normal, everyday occurrence. But it's not. You know that the HOA president, who once fined you for putting your trash bins out 5 minutes past the pickup time, has crossed the line. She's trespassing on your property. And worse, she seems to think she has a right to do it. You're left standing there, frozen, struggling to make sense of what's happening. How did they get here? What do they think they're doing? Who gave them permission? These questions swirl in your mind as you try to figure out how to handle this situation. But then Helen, always the one with the power and control, smirks and waves. "Oh, Jack, you're home early," she says, completely unfazed, like she just found the best place to hold a board meeting. And just like that, she tries to justify it all, saying that the HOA board had decided to hold their meeting by the pool since the clubhouse AC was broken. Your pool was just the perfect replacement for their meeting space. Seriously? Your blood is boiling at this point. You can't believe what you're hearing. They are not only trespassing, but they are also trying to use your private space as a meeting room. The nerve. And that's when you get the idea, the perfect idea to teach them a lesson they'll never forget. Setting the stage for revenge. Now, most people would have been caught off guard, shocked into silence, maybe even panicked about how to approach this kind of situation. Not you. In that moment, a thought crosses your mind. Why not turn this situation into something that'll truly make them regret their entitled behavior? It's the perfect opportunity to take control back from the HOA president who has abused her power for far too long. After all, Helen has always been the one to enforce the rules, the one to hold everyone accountable for every little thing. But when the rules don't suit her, she's willing to bend them, even break them, without a second thought. She's the queen of the neighborhood, using her authority to dictate every aspect of residents' lives, down to what color their mailboxes can be. And here she is, sitting in your pool like she owns it. The irony isn't lost on you. This moment is more than just a petty trespassing issue. It's a glaring example of how far Helen has taken her control. But what if, instead of responding with frustration or outrage, you could get creative? What if you could turn this back on her in a way that would leave her rethinking her authority for good? You see, revenge doesn't always have to be dramatic or cruel. Sometimes, it's about making a statement in a way that the other person has no way of ignoring. In this case, you don't need to raise your voice or cause a scene. You can do something subtle but undeniably effective. You can show them exactly what it feels like when someone gets too comfortable in a space they don't belong. A subtle form of revenge. So, you stand there pretending to go along with it. You smile and nod as Helen explains the board meeting, with the same smug look she's had on her face all morning. You pretend to listen as she talks about neighborhood issues, things like mailbox uniformity and lawn maintenance. But inside, you're planning something much, much better. Without breaking a sweat, you casually stroll over to the pool's control panel. Your hands don't tremble. Your smile doesn't waver. With a swift motion, you crank up the heat, just a little at first. The changes are subtle, almost undetectable. But in a few minutes, as the temperature starts to rise, you know they'll start to feel it. First, they don't notice. They're too busy talking about the important HOA matters. But then Todd, who's been rubbing sunscreen into his bald head with such concentration, starts to squirm. He shifts uncomfortably, loosening the collar of his shirt. "Is it just me? Or is it getting warm in here?" he mutters. You bite back a smile. It's working. Soon, the first beads of sweat form on their brows. But they try to play it off. You hear Helen muttering something about the pool being warm and just what you expect. But the discomfort starts to grow. You can tell they're all starting to feel it. And that's when the real fun begins. What started as a quiet, seemingly innocent moment is about to spiral into chaos. The boiling point. As the water temperature continues to rise, the looks on their faces change. First, confusion. Then mild discomfort. And finally, panic. Helen, who's always been the calm and collected one, starts to squirm in her float. Her eyes dart around, trying to find a reason for the sudden heat. Todd, now visibly sweating, turns to her for an explanation, but all she can muster is a weak excuse about the pool's thermostat being off. And then, the moment of truth. The water hits its peak temperature. The heat is undeniable. Todd is the first to break. He scrambles out of the pool, his face bright red from the sun and the heat. Agnes follows shortly after, yelping in surprise as she tries to make her way to the pool stairs. And Helen, in a fit of fury, tries to salvage what's left of her dignity. She trips, flailing wildly, and lands in a deck chair. The once proud HOA president is now a mess. Her hair frizzed, her makeup streaked, her pride in tatters, turning the tables. As the chaos unfolds by the pool, you can't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Watching Helen, the ever-so-controlled and seemingly invincible HOA president, flailing around like a fish out of water. Well, there's a certain justice in it, don't you think? But this is only the beginning of your plan. You know that if you're going to make them truly understand the consequences of their actions, you need to keep the pressure on in a way that'll leave a lasting impact. What you've done so far is harmless enough, just a bit of heat in the water, but what happens next will take things to a whole new level. The pool incident wasn't just about getting back at Helen for trespassing. It was about showing her and the others that they can't just walk all over you. That's the real lesson you're teaching here. And you'll do it in the most clever way possible. The subtle art of showing power. At first, the group's departure from the pool seems like a victory, but you know it's not over yet. Helen, red-faced and humiliated, storms off with the others in tow, whispering angrily to Todd, who looks as though he's about to burst into tears. The neighborhood is about to see a shift, one that no one will forget for a long time. The key here is subtlety. Revenge doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to come with fireworks and grand gestures. The real power lies in the ability to make someone realize that the world they've constructed around themselves is fragile. And with just a few small moves, you can send it all crashing down. You know Helen isn't going to take this lightly. She'll try to retaliate. She's already furious, and when someone like her gets angry, she doesn't forget. But that's exactly why you have to be careful. The best revenge is often the quiet, calculated kind, where you wait, watch, and let them make the mistake of underestimating you. You keep your distance for the next few days. You don't gloat, you don't rub it in. You stay calm and collected, as if nothing ever happened. The last thing you want is for Helen to sense your satisfaction too soon. Patience is your greatest ally. Meanwhile, life in the neighborhood continues as normal. The usual complaints and gossip swirl around, but now there's an underlying tension. People are starting to whisper about the pool incident. The once untouchable Helen is no longer seen as invincible. You've made a dent in her reputation, something that she'll struggle to recover from. The power of social influence. You've effectively turned the tide. But you know that to truly make a statement, you need more than just a few moments of discomfort. You need to harness the power of social influence. People talk, and in a small community like this one, words travel fast. So you do something unexpected. You throw a neighborhood barbecue. At first, it's just a casual get-together, nothing fancy. You invite everyone, your neighbors, their families, and even the HOA members. It's a move that catches everyone by surprise. After all, who would expect the same person they've just humiliated to extend such an olive branch? The event starts off small: burgers, hot dogs, the usual crowd milling about. But soon enough, people start talking. And guess who they're talking about? Helen. You casually mention to a few people how the pool incident went down. You throw in some lighthearted jokes about how, for a moment, the pool felt more like a hot tub than anything else. Slowly but surely, the story begins to spread. You don't need to do much more than let people talk. The seed has been planted. And as Helen tries to maintain her position of power, the cracks in her reputation begin to show. People start remembering the stories, the little incidents of her pushing boundaries, flexing her authority, and using her position for personal gain. The moment at the pool becomes a turning point, one that shifts the perception of the HOA president from a powerful figure to someone who's just another person trying to overstep their bounds. The importance of subverting authority. One of the most powerful tools you've used here is subverting authority without direct confrontation. Too often, people try to challenge those in power by fighting back head-on. They raise their voices, they demand fairness, and they stand up for their rights. But the real magic happens when you quietly show that the authority they wield is based on nothing more than a fragile illusion. In this case, Helen's authority was built on intimidation and control. She ruled the neighborhood with an iron fist, using her position as the HOA president to dictate the lives of others. But what you did, without ever directly confronting her, was expose the fragility of that power. You showed that authority doesn't come from titles or rules. It comes from respect, from trust, and from the way people perceive you. The more people talk about Helen's failure, the less power she holds. And without that power, she begins to lose her grip on the neighborhood. When the tables turn completely, a few weeks pass, and you're watching the situation unfold with a sense of satisfaction. Helen, who once had everyone in the neighborhood under her thumb, is now the subject of gossip. The HOA board members, who once clung to her every word, are starting to question her decisions. They're beginning to see her for what she truly is, just another person trying to use their position to gain an unfair advantage. The turning point comes when the next HOA meeting is held. This time, however, things are different. The usual agenda of petty rules and regulations is overshadowed by the growing tension in the room. People aren't paying attention to Helen's speeches anymore. They're whispering among themselves, questioning her actions, wondering why the neighborhood has been subject to her authoritarian ways for so long. As the meeting continues, Helen's frustration becomes palpable. She tries to assert control, to reassert her position, but the room is no longer with her. People are speaking up, sharing their concerns, and calling for a change. It's a moment of collective resistance that wouldn't have been possible without the small, subtle shifts you set into motion weeks ago. The final blow. And then the final blow lands. At the height of the meeting, someone speaks up. Someone who had once been a staunch supporter of Helen's authority. They mention the pool incident and how the event exposed Helen's overreach. The rest of the room falls silent as everyone realizes the truth. The power they once feared is now nothing more than a facade. Helen's face flushes with anger and embarrassment as the realization hits her. She tries to salvage the situation, but it's too late. The damage has been done. Her reputation is in shambles, and there's no coming back from it. The neighborhood is no longer her kingdom to rule. The final reckoning. As you sit back and watch the aftermath unfold, there's a certain satisfaction in knowing you've orchestrated a quiet revolution. The tables have turned, and now, Helen, once the queen of the neighborhood, finds herself out in the cold, shunned by those she once ruled. The weight of the situation settles in. You've not only taken back control but have also changed the dynamic in a way that will echo through this community for years to come. But before you allow yourself to indulge in the sweet taste of victory, it's time to reflect on what you've accomplished and what lessons can be drawn from this experience. This isn't just about a petty revenge scheme or getting back at a cruel neighbor. This is about understanding the intricate dance of power, the way authority can shape a community, and how a few carefully placed actions can subvert an entire system. The power of perception. One of the most significant takeaways from this saga is the role of perception in shaping reality. Helen's downfall didn't happen because of a single catastrophic event. It happened because she lost control of the narrative. The pool incident, while embarrassing, was merely the spark that ignited the fire. What really led to her downfall was the slow unraveling of the trust people had in her. The more they saw her for what she truly was, the less power she had over them. In a way, you didn't need to fight her head-on. You didn't need to confront her with accusations or direct resistance. You simply needed to expose the cracks in her image and let people see the truth for themselves. That's where the real power lies, in shaping the way others perceive authority, control, and respect. Once the perception of Helen as an invincible figure was shattered, her power evaporated almost overnight. Revenge without aggression. This entire experience teaches us that revenge doesn't always need to be aggressive, loud, or destructive. In fact, the most effective form of revenge is often the quiet, calculated kind, the kind that operates in the background, subtly shifting the power dynamics until the other side doesn't even realize what's happening until it's too late. Your actions in this story weren't about creating chaos. They weren't about making Helen suffer. They were about restoring balance. Helen's authority was built on fear and intimidation. Once you showed her vulnerabilities and let the community see her in a different light, her control slipped away. You didn't need to fight her in an all-out war. You just needed to let her fail, to watch her self-destruct in her own way. The dangers of power and control. Helen's downfall also serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of absolute power. The more power someone holds, the more likely they are to abuse it. It's a human tendency. When we have control, we often take it for granted. We forget that our authority comes from the trust and respect of those around us, not from titles or rules. Helen's downfall wasn't just a result of her arrogance. It was also a failure to recognize that power is never permanent. The pool incident, small as it seemed at the time, was a manifestation of her overreach. She believed she could act with impunity because no one had ever challenged her. But what she didn't realize was that the moment you took that challenge, her power crumbled. People saw the cracks, and once they did, they no longer had to follow her commands. They understood that power isn't about holding a title. It's about how you wield that title and the respect you command from others. The importance of community. Throughout this journey, one of the most powerful forces at play has been the community itself. In the beginning, Helen's power was almost absolute. She was the leader, the one everyone looked to for guidance. But as time passed and the narrative surrounding her changed, the strength of the community became more apparent. People began to question her leadership, not because of one single act of defiance, but because the truth about her actions came to light. This shows the strength that lies in a united group. People may have felt powerless individually, but collectively, they became a force that no single person could easily dominate. It was the community's shared experiences, the way people came together and began to talk, that broke Helen's control. The lesson here is that no one is truly powerful when they are isolated. True strength lies in the ability to foster relationships, to create a network of support, and to work together towards a common goal. Looking back and moving forward. As the days pass, things in the neighborhood begin to shift. The once quiet tensions have given way to open discussions, and the new HOA president, someone more in tune with the needs of the community, takes charge. There's a renewed sense of unity and cooperation in the air. People feel empowered to speak up, to challenge outdated rules, and to bring about change. It's a new beginning, a fresh start for everyone involved. Helen, meanwhile, retreats into the background, no longer the figurehead of authority she once was. She is left to reflect on her actions, on how her abuse of power led to her fall. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but one she brought upon herself. For you, though, the victory is sweet, not because you've destroyed her, but because you've restored balance and reminded everyone of what true leadership looks like. Leadership is not about control. It's about trust, respect, and the ability to inspire those around you. The end of one era, the beginning of another. The story you've witnessed of power, perception, and the quiet dismantling of an oppressive authority is one that could happen in any community, any group, or any workplace. It's a story of how small, subtle actions can have profound effects, how the quietest moments often hold the most power. As you reflect on everything that's happened, you realize that the true lesson lies not in the events themselves, but in the broader truths they reveal. Power, authority, and respect are never permanent. They're fluid, shifting, and can be easily altered by the actions of just one person. It's a reminder that we must never take our positions for granted and that leadership is about responsibility, not control. In the end, you didn't just teach Helen a lesson, you taught the entire community one. And that, in itself, is a victory far greater than any act of revenge. If you've enjoyed this story and the lessons that came with it, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps us keep creating content just like this. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so you won't miss out on any of our future videos where we dive deep into more fascinating stories, life lessons, and thought-provoking discussions. But here's the most important part. I want to hear from you. What do you think about this story? Do you believe subtle revenge is the best way to handle an unfair situation? Or would you have done something different? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I love reading your opinions and engaging in these conversations. And remember, it's not just about the stories we share, but the lessons we take away from them. So let's keep the discussion going, because every action has its consequences, and every lesson learned shapes who we become. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.